prevention specialist for the Edina, City of Edina Police Department. Now, did I get that correct?
Carol, you did just fine.
Okay.
That's exactly what I
And
did.
so I'm real curious as to what does that mean when they say you're the crime prevention specialist?
Well, that's a sort of an umbrella title or phrase. There are a lot of things that I do. Basically, it's education, disseminating information in a timely manner to the community, people in the community, groups, businesses, that kind of thing.
Okay, so you really go out and tell people in the city and community of Edina what they can do to make it safer for themselves, but then, of course, also for our young people.
Well, it fits in with what you're talking about, because part of what we try to do, not always directly, but indirectly anyway, is to encourage or enhance that sense of community, because crime prevention depends a lot on the ownership that people feel of their community and of their neighborhood, of the block they live in, of the mall they work in, the office building where they work. So part of it, it's sort of an offshoot of what we try to do, is promote that responsibility, that sense of ownership, that sense of community.
Molly has hesitated to mention, too, that she has created some wonderful informational pieces for our citizens, and they're just great.
Thanks, Kathy.
Okay, tell us about them.
Well, whatever it becomes apparent that the community might be interested in. For instance, I think the one you're referring to, because of your work with chemical health, is the parent information sheet, which gives in, I hope, plain English, 6 or 7 state statutes and city ordinances relative to youth behavior in the community, discussing things like alcohol, tobacco, use, what else? Curfew.
Right.
There may be 6 or 7 different things that parents might be interested in terms of the legalities of their child's behavior.
And it's in plain English, so that when you read it, it's
is.
not like reading the actual ordinance.
Right, which can sometimes be confusing for people, and people don't understand what it means to them, really. And then part of that, too, is other programs like Neighbors Home Watch, that kind of thing, which is our residential involvement, our department involvement in the community on a residential basis, is Neighbors Home Watch. You've probably seen the signs around town that look like this.
I have one in my window of my door.
Yeah, and that program, too, part of it is designed to enhance communication between our department and people in the community, and also within the neighborhood, house-to-house kind of communication. So
Kind of watching out for each other and each other's children and family.
That's right, exactly. Looking out for each other, dealing with youth, for instance, on as being a resource, an adult resource, something other than the parents. You know, older children sometimes get involved or get interested in this too. So it's community building.
Yeah, I think one of the nicest things a neighbor can do for a young person is to catch them, not catch, this sounds bad, but when they see something that's inappropriate, to call their attention to the fact that, gosh, you know, maybe that isn't the best use of your time or your car or whatever it is. So often we tend to turn the other way and just sort of ignore it. It's not our child, it's not our problem, and that's harmful for the child.
That sense of not being involved, of not being connected, that sort of isolation kind of mentality is very harmful. And that's a crime-breeding mentality, too. So that's something we're very interested in.
And so is this neighborhood watch, that's probably one of your best ways to prevent that?
Residential, yes. This is our major program in terms of residential crime prevention, Neighbors Home Watch. It's called something different in every community. I think in Richfield, for instance, it's Neighborhood Watch, and we call ours Neighbors Home Watch. But yeah, and through that vehicle, we communicate. We have a newsletter that comes out every 2 months. Our primary focus, of course, is property crime. That's what we're around for, more or less. But you know, there are other pieces of information that hopefully are helpful to people, and we disseminate them through that vehicle. That's our organized way of communicating.
So is there an identified leader then in the neighborhood?
Yes.
I see.
Each group does have a contact person, and that contact person is responsible for bringing them all together once a year. They need to have an annual meeting. At that meeting, we want some kind of a public safety issue addressed. I have a list of 10 topics, although we'll come out and talk about almost anything that's related to a community issue, public safety. So every year each group gets together and focuses on something for a short time, whether it's personal safety, fire safety, maybe the DARE program, something that has to do with.
How about if a group wants to do that? Say there's a neighborhood out there, even Edina or one of the other suburbs, and they think, gosh, I'd really like to get together with my neighbors. What would they do?
They would call the person at their police department who is involved in crime prevention, and for Edina it'd be me, but each department, each suburban department has someone assigned to that unit, and then they would get some information. Each suburb has a little bit different twist on it and way of handling it, but for Edina, I handle it, and they need to meet every year. If they do that and maintain their active status, they get this newsletter twice a year, and they have the large yellow signs in the neighborhood. The signs, I think, there's some deterrent value to signage, but also it's there to remind the neighbors that have they taken all the precautions that they need to when they're leaving home. This is their neighborhood. They are responsible for it. So it's sort of a dual purpose.
Awareness level that you
right.
don't get without
Not
the
just for
sign.
people coming into the neighborhood, but also for the neighbors to keep their awareness up.
So would it be suggested that you just go door to door and ask your neighborhood if they want to get involved? Okay.
That's why most people do it, and we have literature, we have information of all kinds. We have brochures, invitations that people can use.
Oh, I know we had a coffee. One of the neighbors had a coffee, and it's a wonderful way for neighbors to get together.
Yes.
And that's very important.
In fact, some groups are formed on more of a social basis. Some groups are formed on sight lines, more or less. There are a couple groups who've been together for a long time, and they meet twice a year regardless, and it's a good opportunity for us to get out in the community too and have that kind of positive contact to help educate and inform, but also just to meet face to face, and we are all in this together. Get that sense across too.
And you know, the police people sort of always give me a little uneasy feeling. I don't know why, because I try to be very honest in it, but it is true. So I think it'd be a very good way for you to get to know the community and for them to get to know you.
Again, that relationship building, which is one of our key words.
And that is needed in
Olsen.
so.
Absolutely.
Now, do you have other programs in this, or is this the primary program? And
Well, yeah, we're involved in a lot of other programs. This year, I know you're aware of the PSLO, our Police School Liaison Officer, Dave Nelson. We have DARE. We're in the schools in the 5th grade doing DARE, Drug Abuse Resistance Education. We do safety fairs at Southdale. We have McGruff, who is the costumed character, the crime dog. McGruff comes around to preschool, kindergarten, 1st grade, that age, and talks about safety tips and street safety in particular for children, young children. Bike rodeo in the spring, we do that every spring. We have bike safety in the schools and then bike rodeo at 2 sites.
and I know you go around and speak on safety for women, because you came to a meeting for Family Resources, and that was very, very interesting, and I would recommend it for any group to hear. There's a lot of good ideas. Yeah.
And I know you've made up a little tip sheet for babysitters.
Yes.
It would be for the parents who are hiring the babysitters, I believe.
Yes, that is for parents to help them hire someone who can work well in their situation with their children. So crime prevention in many cities, and Edina also, is a broad area. It covers a lot of different ground.
Well, safety for a community covers a lot. If someone is interested in that particular tip sheet, could they call you, and also the tip sheet that you had for parents?
Absolutely. There are approximately 50 different pieces of information available that I'm happy to send out to people. 925-2242 is our phone number.
Okay, let's say that again.
925-2242.
Okay.
And if they forget who I am, they can just ask for crime prevention, and many different topics, lots of information, and we're happy to share it.
Well, I think that's wonderful. We really appreciate you coming and spending time with us.
Glad to do it.
Wish you well.
Thank you.
And
Thank you, Molly.
hopefully we'll prevent a lot of, or keep our neighborhood safe, I guess is what we want.
That's what we want too.
Thank you.
Thanks. Hi. Well, we're happy to welcome you all back. We have another guest with us now. This is Alice Randall. And help me, Alice, with what's your position?
Sure, Kathy, I can do that. I'm the Project Development Coordinator for Edina Community Education Services, and that's a division, we are a division of Edina Public Schools, and our offices are at Edina Community Center.
Okay. Well, we're really glad to have you here.
Thank you.
I think I'll start with just an understanding of what kind of programs you offer.
Sure.
And then we'll be able to show how those weave in with the Peter Benson information.
Okay, great.
So you have the business partner?
Well, I actually started out with youth development, and there was a levy about 7 or 8 years ago that was especially for youth programming in the community of Edina. And we held a town meeting, had about 100 people to the town meeting, business people, community people, kids, teachers, administrators, and talked about what the needs were for kids in our community at that time. And we identified 3 programs. The Family Resource Center is one of the programs that came out of the youth development study, and the youth service program at the high school is also a program that came out of that study, and then youth enrichment classes for kids.
This is a good example of a community coming together with students, young people in mind.
Absolutely.
And I think the Peter Benson, they would encourage us to do something similar to that again.
Absolutely. That was kind of a, a precursor, I think, to the Peter Benson study. And I'm interested in the Peter Benson study because I did move from youth development to business education partnerships. I think you've interviewed Julie Cardinal on this show. Julie came in and started running the youth service and the youth enrichment classes at Edina Community Ed, and I kind of lost touch with the youth programming at that time. But some of the things that are part of the Business Education Partnership Project relate to kids. We developed 7 projects with, again, we had a breakfast, a Business Education Partnership breakfast, and invited teachers, administrators, and business people in the community to come and again talk about needs that both businesses and educators had, and then how we could again address those needs. And the mission of our Business Education Partnership Project is to promote the exchange of resources for mutual benefit, so that it's not that educators, school people are looking to businesses as solely resources, but we're looking at how we can exchange those resources. So we have a lot of really exciting projects that have come out of that.
Yeah. One thing, in looking at the Peter Benson survey, what we're thinking of is that the businesses are really neighbors to in our community, and they are very important in helping to develop and strengthen the young people.
Absolutely, yes.
And certainly our other adult resources, which Peter Benson has suggested that at least 7 adult mentors per child is best. That's optimum.
Sure.